Mario fights an awful lot of enemies during his adventures to stop Bowser and rescue Princess Peach. And obviously, because Mario fights so many boss battles during his adventures, some bosses are going to be easy and some bosses are going to be pretty challenging. So today I'm going to focus on the hard side, and I am going to rank the top 10 hardest Mario boss fights. The boss fights can be either from the 2D Mario franchise or the 3D Mario franchise. However, I'm not counting any Bowser fights since they have their own top 10 list, which I will link as an end card at the end of this video if you want to go check that video out. And I'm also not counting any spin-off Mario franchises. It's only the main series Mario boss fights that will count, with the exception of the final Bowser fight. So, if you're happy with that, let's get going with the 10th hardest fight in the Super Mario Bros. Series. Let's start off this list in New Super Mario Bros. U. Most of the fights in the New Super Mario Bros. Series are pretty simple. However, Ludwig von Koopa's fights tend to be pretty challenging, especially the ones in New Super Mario Bros. U. This fight is very challenging because Ludwig creates two clones of him and you need to guess which one is the real one. Hint, the one that fires 3 bolts instead of 2 is the real Ludwig, and also the real Ludwig falls to the ground last. But honestly, figuring that part out isn't even the hardest part of this fight. The hardest part of the fight is that you can't hurt the clones, but the clones can hurt you. Since there are 3 Ludwigs casting 2 bolts each with the real one casting 3, you need to dodge a total of 7 bolts at a time, whilst also keeping track of which one is the real Ludwig as well. There's a lot to dodge in this boss battle, because this boss fight throws a lot at you, which makes it earn its place as the 10th hardest Mario boss fight. This fight is a very good fight, but boy, it's very challenging. Just like the Ludwig fight, this boss fight throws a lot at you. Bowser Jr. with the aid of the Mega Hammer will fire bullet bills, and Mario with the aid of Yoshi can eat the bullet bills and fire them back at the Mega Hammer. But you need to be quick, because as soon as Yoshi eats a bullet bill, you only have a certain period of time to fire it back at the boss, or else the bullet bill will explode in Yoshi's mouth and will cause you to take damage. You also need to dodge a lot of bullet bills and shockwaves that Bowser Jr. creates. The final hit is pretty hard as well, since you need to time the attacks in order to hit Bowser Jr., as well as dodge oncoming bullet bills and shockwaves. So yeah, a lot is thrown at you in this fight, which is why I think it's the 9th hardest boss fight in the Super Mario Bros. Series. This boss fight is pretty tough, especially for the boss of World 3. This fish will jump out at you and try to attack you, and you need to jump on him at just the right moment when he jumps at you in order to attack you. I find this boss pretty challenging because the Cheap Skipper can jump up at any moment, as well as the 3 smaller Cheap Cheats also jumping up in order to attack you. Also, the time frame to attack him is pretty small as well. Okay, this boss isn't terribly difficult since it is only at number 8, but it still is quite challenging, especially as the boss of only World 3. Topper is the first boss you fight in Super Mario Odyssey, and while yes, the first fight in the Cat Kingdom is very straightforward because you know it's a tutorial boss fight, his second boss fight at Bowser's Kingdom, yeah, that one's not so straightforward. Topper does use the same tactics in this fight as he did in the Cat Kingdom, however, this fight is so much harder due to one thing and one thing alone: the sheer number of hats Topper has. Like wow, how many hats does one Broodal need? And yes, all of the hats can hurt you. Especially on the final hit, there are just so many hats in the battle arena flying all over the place. It's pretty challenging to dodge all of the hats whilst trying to attack the Broodal. So yeah, this boss fight is pretty challenging, keeps you on your toes, but it's far from being the hardest boss fight in the series. This boss fight is on this list for pretty much the same reason as Topper, except instead of dodging 10,000 hats, you're dodging 10,000 rings that bounce all over the arena that Wendy-O Koopa fires at you. Unlike the fight in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, the rings don't disappear after a certain amount of time, and they also move faster in Super Mario Bros. 3 than they do in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. So as soon as Wendy fires a ring at you, that ring stays on screen until either you defeat the boss or you die. Honestly, I think that this is the hardest boss fight in the 2D Mario games in my opinion, just due to how much stuff you need to dodge on screen. However, if you do defeat Wendy quickly, then it's not actually that hard, so I strongly recommend that you defeat this boss fast before it gets too difficult. It's every speedrunner's worst nightmare. The Mecha Wiggler boss in Super Mario Galaxy is very tough. You need to capture the tank and use it to shoot bullets at the Wiggler. However, the Mecha Wiggler will shoot heat-seeking fireballs at you during the battle, which can slow you down massively, and I strongly recommend that you actually destroy the fireballs using the bullet bills, otherwise they will come back and they will find a way to hit you. When this boss is in teleportation mode, this boss is completely invincible. The boss also moves at a pretty quick pace whilst teleporting as well. This boss is very hard and very challenging, and it keeps you on your toes. Good old underwater levels. Don't you just love a good underwater level in Mario games? Anyone? If so, I have the perfect boss fight for you. King Fin, or as I like to call him, Jaws, or sometimes I even like to call him Bones, from Super Mario Galaxy is definitely a very hard fight. For starters, the entire fight is underwater, and I don't know about you, but I absolutely hate the swimming controls of Super Mario Galaxy. I don't know what it is, but I just find the controls so hard to master. I find it either not sensitive enough at times, or sometimes too sensitive, and it's just a nightmare to control Mario. Plus the fact that he has an air meter that you need to monitor in order to protect Mario from drowning. King Fin also summons smaller bonefish in order to hunt you down underwater and to attack you, which just adds to the difficulty. This fight is just a bit of a nightmare to beat, but I still think there are 3 fights that are harder than this one. Well, on the topic of underwater levels, let's take a look at the Ely Mouth boss in Super Mario Sunshine. Not only do I think this is the 3rd hardest boss fight in the whole Mario franchise, I also think it's the most boring boss fight in the whole Mario franchise. So, this boss is another underwater boss, which makes it all the more harder. The way you defeat him is pretty difficult, since you need to clean the boss's teeth whilst trying not to go too far in his mouth where he will either try to eat you or try to suck you in. You also need to watch out for the purple goo that he shoots at you. Since you're underwater, you move a lot slower than you normally would, so it's so hard to move and try to dodge his attacks as if you were on land. So yeah, it's tedious, boring, slow, and a hard boss fight. But there's still 2 more that are harder. The first Gobblegut boss you fight at the end of World 1 was hard enough, but the fiery Gobblegut, now that's a whole nother level. Because everything he touches sets on fire and will remain on fire for quite a bit. When he dives down at you, you have to spin attack the red bulges on him, but you cannot spin attack or even touch the rest of his body, or else you'll take damage due to his whole body being on fire. So you must time your attacks perfectly. And the last 3 hits are even harder, not only because his attacks are faster, but it also rains meteors on you, which are also on fire that Mario needs to dodge. On your first go, this boss is very challenging because it requires almost perfect gameplay to beat this boss, and boy, it's so satisfying when you beat it, just due to how difficult it is. But despite how hard this boss is, there's still just one more that I think is harder than the fiery Gobblegut. This boss. Oh my word, this boss. The fiery Dino Piranha Plant is definitely the hardest boss battle in the whole series. The normal Piranha Plant is probably the easiest boss in the game, considering that it's the first boss in the game. But little did we know that when we first beat the normal Dino Piranha Plant, all that you need to do is just set the boss on fire to make it the hardest boss ever. Because this boss is on fire, just like the fiery Gobblegut, you need to attack the boss just at the right moment, i.e. when his tail is not on fire in order to attack him. Attack him at the wrong moment, then you get burnt. I think this boss is harder than the fiery Gobblegut because he moves at a constant fast pace, and getting the timing right in order to attack him when his tail is not on fire is so hard. Trust me, it's a lot harder than it looks due to his tail constantly changing from being on fire and to not being on fire. and in the final hit, he shoots fireballs at you as well. Also, in the final 2 hits, whenever his tail is on fire, he leaves a fiery trail behind him that you need to dodge as well. It took me forever to defeat this boss because it's so hard and so difficult. Everything from the timing, the fire, the obstacles, the fast pace it moves, everything. It is clear that the fiery Dino Piranha Plant is definitely the hardest boss in the whole Super Mario franchise. Wow. Those are some pretty challenging boss fights if I don't say so myself. So yeah, what do you think of that video? I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I shall see you all in 2 weeks' time for another video. See you then.